Hey everyone, I'm Greg Lambert with the Geek and Review, and I have Stephanie Wilkins from Legal Technology Hub with us. And Stephanie, it's about that time again to release the Gen AI map. So what's it look like now?
Yeah, it is. It's come to be that, every new quarter at Legal Tech Hub means it's another update to that LTH Gen AI Legal Tech map. And somehow we're already there for 2026. As with nearly every map iteration that came before it, we're once again seeing significant quarter over quarter growth in the map. As of March 2026, we're right around 1,000 product placements on the map, which is a milestone that we'd been looking forward to since we launched the first map. We thought we might hit it by the end of 2025, but we weren't far off the mark with that prediction. But speaking of that first map, if you remember, or if maybe you never saw it the first time around, the first iteration of the map came out in February 2025. And we saw 400 product placements for Gen AI and legal tech. We updated it just 2 weeks later, just in time for Legal Week 2025, and we had about 500 product placements. So we're talking 1 year ahead in Legal Week 2026, we're at almost 1,000. So we've doubled the market in that 1 year, which is just really impressive. And the count went up significantly even from just 3 months ago. Our end of the year map for 2025 had about 850 product placements.
Wow.
So we're still on a steady incline in terms of growth, but where we're seeing growth has shifted a little bit over time. Initially, we saw a lot of growth in hot areas like AI legal assistance. And while still is some growth there, this time around, we're seeing our biggest areas of growth in more bread and butter or less trendy areas, if you will, like law firm operations and compliance. And to me, that signals that AI really is starting to make inroads in legal and in areas where it can make the most difference internally and maybe not externally what you want people to think you're working on. And that's sort of in line with what I saw at Legal Week also, that the AI conversation is maturing a lot and people are having smarter discussions about how it can solve actual problems. And it's all part of the bigger trend of moving from if to how on AI. And I think that's a really great thing. I have heard some people start to speculate if our map will start getting smaller eventually rather than bigger. And given all the consolidation in the market, that may one day be true, but by all accounts, by everything we're seeing, that we're not at that point yet. So we're still getting bigger and curious to see where we are at the end of Q2, 3 months from now. But if you want to see the latest map and our analysis of it, you can just find it on www.legaltechnologyhub.com. And that article will link to prior iterations of the map as well, so you can compare.
All right, Stephanie, make a projection. Second quarter 2027. What's our number?
Oh, second quarter 2027? I'll go 1,500.
All right.
Welcome to the Geek and Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. I'm Marlene Gaybauer.
And I'm Greg Lambert. And Marlene, for the past 3 years or so, the legal tech world has been obsessed with the Swiss Army knife of AI. These tools that try to draft every email, summarize every contract, and basically try to boil the ocean in one go.
One size fits all.
We've entered this new phase in what's being called the specialized scalpel, where generalists are being pushed aside by these very high precision tools designed for the highest stakes in litigation. And today, our guest is at the center of this shift. He's the CEO of Wexler, a London based company that pioneered the category of fact intelligence and has rapidly become essential infrastructure of some of the world's most elite law firms, including Clifford Chance, Goodwin, and HSF Kramer.
And Gregory Mostyn comes from a family deeply rooted in UK legal establishment. His father's a recently retired high court judge, and his siblings are partners and barristers. But he took Greg. You took a little bit of a roundabout way into legal tech, including brief tenure as an actor on the HBO baking drama Industry. We got to hear about this.
Banking.
Gregory, welcome to the Geek and Review.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's good to be here.
So Greg, we love a good founder's journey, and you've mentioned in some of your writings that there's a childhood memory of how your father was bringing home these huge physical ring binders of data to review every single night. So how did that image of the binder era of
Yeah.
litigation shape your decision for to avoid the generalist AI boom and instead focus on this scalpel approach that you've been talking about?
Yeah, so yeah, as you correctly identified, I'm not an attorney, but I'm grown up surrounded by them. I remember basically every Sunday lunch, every sort of family dinner, huge debates about whatever was the latest case raging, not just in the UK, but sort of globally, whatever it was the kind of controversy of the time. I do vividly remember my dad coming back, having to review literally 10 ring binders before the next day in court, like overnight, staying up till 3 a.m. or something and then standing up in court the next day. And my dad was actually a real innovator in the profession. So in COVID, he was very sort of, when he was a judge at that point, he was very forward about, conducting hearings on Teams and Zoom and all those kind of things. And he actually founded a kind of legal tech company in the 90s, as it would happen, and which was it's still going. It's called Class Legal. It's like a family law company, which started off as a sort of publisher for some sort of legal textbooks within family law in the UK, and has also helps you to create various templates and forms and things. So kind of like a bit of rules-based machine learning. I don't know, but anyway, so yeah, I think that was a very vivid memory of my childhood. And when I started this, I went through an incubator called Entrepreneur First, where you're sort of paired up with other brilliant people, supposedly brilliant, and you try and come up with a real big pain point. And there was no pain point I could remember more vividly than my dad having to review hundreds, thousands of pages manually, line by line, word by word, to prepare for court for the next day. So that was where we went after, and I spoke to literally hundreds, starting off with my network, people I knew, family, friends, etc., and growing and going out into the world across the US as well as in the UK, and identified that this was a real problem, basically establishing the facts in disputes. You either hammer the law or you hammer the facts. And actually, as a sitting judge, my dad realized that half the lawyers in front of him didn't know the facts of their cases. They probably physically couldn't in a lot of cases because there were too many documents to review manually. And you're always going for a sort of subset of the data involved. And yeah, I think there was the Prince Harry case versus a big newspaper here where they just had to take a small section of the potential evidence to review because there wasn't enough time or resource to review the whole case. And I thought, hang on a minute, we could build something where actually we can review everything and give it the attention it deserves so that every client gets the best representation. And hey, maybe those lawyers don't have to stay up till 3 a.m. to review it cover to cover. So yeah, that's been the story. Since then, we've been ruthlessly focused, trying to do something more sort of specialized rather than, as you say, try to boil the ocean. But it's now become this kind of full platform for analyzing, establishing, and verifying facts and disputes. Maybe it's more like a kind of surgeon's tray of scalpels rather than just the one.
I'm curious, did you experiment on your siblings and your father to test these things out as you were developing them?
100%. At the beginning, my dad was very closely involved. My stepmom's also a barrister in the UK. My brother's a partner at Cleary. So yeah, they were my first proto beta testers, if you like, showing them Figma prototypes, understanding how things would work. At the time, like if we think about how far the models have improved, at the time they were still I mean, at the time they were incredible, but now looking back, you really had to do a ton of prompting, of stitching together the different systems to get the best output. And actually, we're now the beneficiaries of the billions that are being poured into the models because, it's a bit of a modular system that we've created. So one new model release improves one part of our product and so on and so on. But yeah, at the time it was kind of mechanical Turk, if you like, but very, 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 very helpful to have
Gosh, I
that,
haven't heard
expert insight.
Mechanical Turk in a while.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, cool.
So, so for our innovation and KM leaders that are
Yeah.
listening, we often hear them say, we already have e-discovery tools for document review. Now,
Hmm.
you're coming at this from a different angle. So, you've argued e-discovery prepares documents for humans, but
Hmm.
fact intelligence is different. It reads them like a human does. So it'll extract events from footnotes on, page 993 or buried in a WhatsApp thread. So can you explain why the atomic unit of legal knowledge needs to shift from document to the individual fact and how that changes a firm's?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, if you imagine like a hypothetical case, let's say it's a multi-party fraud claim, 80,000 relevant documents, multiple plaintiffs, different advisors saying different things. There are inconsistencies. One person's claiming something, someone else is claiming something else. A third party is saying that never happened. Someone else has got, it's just another dog in the fight where they're trying to bring up some other discovery which is important. It's not that helpful to say here's some relevant documents, right? It's not that helpful to say here are the documents that are responsive to certain search terms, because people don't speak in search terms. People speak in coded, obfuscated language. Things don't always add up, and so what you need is something that's able to basically distill the documents into the facts, not just saying, hey, here's 10 relevant documents, but saying this is what happened, this is why it happened, and this is why it's important to the case. And so the process of basically extracting the discrete observable happenings, if you like, i.e. the events, from the documents, assigning relevance based on a list of issues that the attorney themselves provide, which may be taken from the complaint or, from the pleadings, etc., and then using that as the database which you reason over, means that you're basically equipped with all of the information you need to build the most compelling case. And you're not just saying, here are some relevant documents. You're saying, this is what happened and this is why it matters. So it's complementary to e-discovery, right? We are the sort of second level, the deep strategic layer that you take once you've got the relevant documents, or maybe before rediscovery, right? Client self-produces 10,000 documents and say, get back to me by Friday with where we stand. But the output isn't just, here's a kind of data document set which we've built up. It's actually, this is the story, because litigators tell stories and they tell stories backed up by the facts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's important. You mentioned it's kind of a second step because, sometimes there are like, millions of documents that you're talking about, and
Yeah.
I don't know how many, you can
Yeah.
accept at one time, but that step is still critical to kind of just narrow it down to what's, what you want to look at in query.
100%. So yeah, we can do a lot. We can do 250,000 documents, which is, I think, higher than most of the LLM legal platforms I've come across, and
It's
that's
not
kind of
bad.
like
Not
AI
bad.
native processing, and we hope to get to 1 million by the end of the year. But you're right, it's like from the smaller universe. One of my colleagues says, you wouldn't want a surgeon to be giving you aspirin, right? There's no point putting a whole custodian's mailbox in Wexler, because you want to know that what you're putting in is at least broadly relevant to the case, because of, it's really extensive and painstaking what we're going through and extracting. So yeah, there is that first step, which is critical for the first cull, but actually that sort of smaller universe of document, turning that into winning case strategy is critical. And so where Wexer gets used a lot is for depot prep, trial prep, summary judgment, sort of briefing, plus early case assessment. And obviously it's jurisdictional agnostic as well. So we do arbitration, investigations, and so on.
So how does it compare to, say, like one of the general ones? Because I mean,
Yeah.
they certainly can be used in that way and do
Mm.
comparisons. So how, how does it differ? What's the secret sauce?
So I think it's about that fact extraction pipeline, which I talked about. So essentially, it's the key kind of difference is that what we do is we process the documents, we pass them through this 15-step pipeline, which doesn't just stuff documents into one context window and say, hey, go look for X or go look for Y. What it does is it sort of normalizes that data. So even if something is like a one message WhatsApp saying, I flew to Paris last year, versus something really neatly laid out saying, the plaintiff flew to Paris on this year, which obviously you guys are both technically in the weeds here. You'll know the LLM have a bias to more structured information. And so what happens is, if you just chuck documents into a generalist tool, yes, it will give you broad insights, but actually in order to really find the key contemporaneous piece of evidence, the kind of things that trial attorneys are looking for, that smoking gun to help them build the winning case, it's not always clear. And so it's that fact extraction pipeline where we stitch together all these different models into this 15-step process, which rationalizes and elucidates that complex information, normalizes it into structured data, which they can then work over. Like, we hosted a dinner at Legal Week, and one of the innovators there, who worked in litigation, was saying litigation is messy. Like, it is very, very messy. Things are not clear. Things are obfuscated either deliberately or accidentally. You've got things being overwritten by other things all the time. And you need something that can basically first distill that into a structured way and then use that um, as the kind of unit of analysis. So that's kind of one of the key differentiators. Obviously, scale, which we've already touched on. And then we've got some other functionality, which is only possible because of this kind of fact bank that we're building up. So one of them is real time, which is basically like live fact checking for depositions. And it's only possible because of that database we built up. We could put it on right now and it could fact check all the things that I'm saying. And probably, but it wouldn't show anything. I'm happy to say.
it would let us know that you flew to New York recently.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of real time, and I also want to talk about the digital trainee, Kim, that
Yeah.
you set up. So real time allows, like you said, the litigators to flag contradictions in testimony during a live deposition
Yeah.
as it happens. And you have famously said that the truth is a nebulous concept, but
Yeah.
contradiction is very
Yeah.
verifiable. So
Yeah.
how are tools like Wexler and your AI agent Kim acting more like a digital trainee or a partner rather than just a passive search tool?
Hmm.
And I want to I'll let you answer that, and then I want to follow up with a couple more there.
I mean, it's interesting. I think basically what Kim does really well is sift through vast amounts of information and pick out patterns. We don't opine on the veracity of things, right? Like we only look at the documents that we've been given. So within the universe of documents, are there contradictions against other documents, other facts within the same data set? That's what we can do. This is how we minimize, like basically eliminate hallucination risk, inaccuracies, those kind of things. Doesn't search on the internet, doesn't look in its training data, is absolutely ruthlessly and rigidly told to focus on that information. And also the way we structure all the data into those facts really drives up that accuracy. So in as much as it's a very helpful digital training, as you say, but it's limited to the four corners of the page of the documents plus the metadata that you're giving it. So that's really important. That's how we drive up the accuracy. And yeah, maybe we're losing out on some potential functionality, but actually it's much more important for us to be accurate and allow the lawyers to then apply the law to the facts and look on the internet and those kind of things. So yes, truth is a nebulous concept. We can't say for sure if something is, we can say if something looks dodgy or if something looks odd or there's fact patterns that don't quite add up. But if it's not contradicted by another piece of data within the same data set, that's not our job. That's not the AI's job to do that. And that's kind of our core belief. I think that's our thesis. It should be like an accelerant, an enhancement. It's not going to take you 3 weeks to do this task or 3 days. It might take you 3 hours, but importantly, those 3 hours will help you get better at understanding the facts of the case so that you can stand up in court or prepare for a deposition and you actually know what's going on, not just the AI has told me this. So
Yeah.
I think, yes, it's a really helpful digital trainee, but it is only looking at the documents you give it. It's not looking elsewhere. And it can look for patterns, but it's not going to sort of lead you to the wrong place. It's not going to look at the internet and it's not going to hallucinate case law because that's not in the remit of what it does.
Do you rely on the LLM to work with these documents? And the reason I ask is I've seen it, and I've had people come up to me where they may dump a few hundred or a few thousand documents in, and then all of a sudden it like introduce characters into
Yeah.
that don't exist.
Yeah.
There's always like a Robert Chin that shows up
Yeah. Yeah, we have it.
somewhere. And so how is it that you're taking the information and making sure that you're reducing the chance of hallucinations?
So there's a few different things. I think technically the fact that we're operating from structured data rather than unstructured data massively drives up the accuracy of the system. And this has been like tested against other generalist platforms by our customers regularly. So basically, because it doesn't run out of context, it doesn't have to invent or fabulate people when it's looking for the kind of smoking gun. Obviously, everything, this is kind of table stakes now, but I think you'd be surprised. Everything is sourced down not just to the document, but to the sentence that it's been taken from. And then also we have like extreme guidelines and guidance in the back end to say, you return a null answer if there's nothing within the four corners of the document that supports this assertion. Can we say it's 100% accurate? Of course not. And any AI vendor telling you it is, you need to go and sell them back the bridge they've sold you, right? So, but I think it is highly, highly accurate. And more than anything, the verification flow where you can really quickly click on each source and independently verify it is helpful. One, to verify, but two, you're actually looking at all the documents and you're getting familiar with the documents as they should be viewed, as if they were printed out, and you're finding those patterns too. So yeah, there's technical ways, which is basically the structured data, that fact extraction pipeline I talked about earlier. And then there's obviously guidance, and there's also importance of change management and training, which you two will be obviously working with your attorneys on to ensure that everyone understands that this is a new type of technology. It's not going to return the same result every time. You can limit the variance, but actually it's like having a sort of second opinion. It's like you gave the same task to 100 attorneys, they'd probably return you 100 different results.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So In your recent writing, you described 2026 as the year of market chaos. Yikes. Where traditional law firm knowledge moats have evaporated.
Mm,
Now, if AI can now establish a factual record with, 95% accuracy, save
mm.
90% of a junior associate's manual review time, what does that do to the traditional economic model of big law?
Look, I think it's a big question, and I'm sure I'm not qualified to answer it in full. But I think my thoughts are: one, there's a huge amount of work that's not. There's a huge amount of like wasted time, which isn't billed to the client. It's not valuable time. It's dead time, basically, which we can massively reduce. Meaning people can go home earlier. They can spend more time focusing on strategy and how to actually use this information. So, one of our customers, a partner actually, his user said Wex identified an inconsistency. He reckons he would have found it maybe in a couple days, but actually he could spend a couple days planning strategy rather than just churning through documents, right? And actually how to use this in an offensive or a defensive way. So he wasn't losing any billable time, but the time that he was billing was much more valuable for the outcome of the case. And in the kind of theater of litigation, that's what you're looking for on the upper hand. I mean, increasingly, we are seeing fixed fees with some of our clients. People are looking for more kind of value-based billing, or maybe like a hybrid where it's like project-based fixed fee. You get a menu of sort of outputs, and actually, I was thinking about this, like, why do you bring in a big law firm if you're in a bet the company dispute? It's because you want you want the assurance that they're gonna represent you because it's the most important thing in your company's history. Or it's like one of the most important things, depends how big the company is and how litigious they are. But you want to know that when you bring in like the Quinn Emanuels or whoever it is, one of the massive firms, that they are going to go out and fight for you tooth and nail. And I think you can't really put a price on that. And the value system should be reflective more of that rather than just the number of hours of documents that you're reviewing. Because if Wexler was in a big dispute, I definitely want them to be using AI, but I'd still want there to be humans there representing my best interest because that's what you pay for. That's the kind of assurance. So yeah, I mean, we're going to see a lot of creative thinking about the billable hour and how this kind of sort of changes in the years to come. But I think for the short term, there's a huge amount of wasted dead time which can be reduced, and better like quality of life for the litigators and better outcomes for the clients. And longer term, I think we need to start thinking more about kind of value based. I think where we work specifically, obviously, a lot of the stuff we do is like oral advocacy and standing up in court, and I think people are going to want to prepare for that in the same way that kind of athletes train up for the big race. And I think that's going to be a really important part of the work that kind of AI can help with too.
I like your one example that, the partner was able to devote more time to
Yeah.
strategic thinking. I mean, are you hearing that more broadly, or was that just kind of an isolated example?
No, no, absolutely. Like all the time. Like we had an example where, they found an inconsistency which their forensic accountant had missed. And then they were able to use that inconsistency throughout the rest of the matter, as a kind of key piece of strategy throughout. I think we're definitely seeing it's reducing the kind of grunt work and freeing up time to think bigger picture, think about where this kind of shakes out. What are our best strategies? You can even do like adversarial analysis where you talk to the chat assistant and say, okay, you're the other side now. Let's run through some hypotheses. And they can obviously review every single document and you need to know what to say in response. So, yeah, we're definitely hearing that people are massively reducing the kind of busy work and it's freeing up time to think more strategically.
That's good to hear. I mean, are you hearing anything from the client side? Not your client side, but our client side?
The end clients.
Yes.
Well, indirectly, but I know that people are. We have clients who also get access to the platform. So without getting too into the weeds, but we're not seat based, we're consumption based. So we don't care how many users there are. So we give access to the clients as well. In the UK, we also give access to the barristers who are independent, the kind of trial attorneys. So yeah, we definitely hear people really like it. Obviously, they like better value for money, but also I think they like that we're covering all bases here. We're reviewing every document, and my colleague was a litigator for several years at Mayer Brown, and he was saying, I was reviewing documents at 3 a.m. in my bed, just like going one, yes, no, and like that's going to be fraught with human error, right? And I'd probably rather pay for AI to do it anyway, even if it was the exact same number of hours, because you know that they can cover all the
They're
bases.
not
So
sleepy. It's not sleepy.
exactly. It's not going to be tired. It's not the end of a long week. It doesn't have, all the personal things going on that every human does. So, maybe it does. I don't know.
So Greg, I'm going to hit you with a question that's off script here, but it's just
Yeah.
something that as we've gone around and started talking with people, and you probably heard this at Legal Week as well. Training.
Yeah.
How are you approaching, the training? Are you able to actually leverage the AI to help you kind of learn the AI, or what's the training method that you take for getting people up to speed?
At Wexer, yeah, how we train people to understand. So, yeah, we do a few different things. We obviously do hands-on training. We usually do it by sort of sub-practice group. We also offer top-up training for a specific case. Like, people want to know, and then we've even done it. We've like signed NDAs, and we've actually got really into the weeds of the case with the customers. Although that's obviously not our default position because of confidentiality. So we do a lot of hands-on training. We go in person, London and New York. We do walkthrough training and so on and so forth. What we also do, which I think is really important, is we do a kind of workshop that's not about Wexler, but it's about AI in general. And it's like I was saying to the team, we need to convey to even the most sophisticated attorney, like how this technology can both solve a really complex reasoning problem and also not count the number of R's in strawberry. Like people don't understand how those two things can be true at the same time. And so it's really important that before we even give anyone access to Wexler, or maybe it's after, but whatever, while they're using it, they understand that this is a new type of technology. It's a kind of pattern matcher. That doesn't mean it's not useful. It's very, very useful, but you need to know those kind of general things to be aware of and what to look out for. So, yeah, we do a lot of training, we do a lot of workshops, we do kind of general AI sort of um, familiarity, educational workshops as well. And we do top ups for individual matters. What often happens is people will be using it regularly and they'll be like, we've got a massive case that's just come in. We want to do a special training for the attorneys on that. And then we'll do that too. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, kind of dovetailing with this, before we get to the crystal ball question, we've been asking our guests to share with us some of the resources, newsletters, or
Yeah.
thinkers that you are relying on to kind of keep you ahead of these compute cycles of these big
Yeah.
AI foundational labs. So what helps you keep up with things?
So there's a brilliant technologist called Benedict Evans. I don't know if you know him, but he's a great follow. He's good because he has a healthy dose of skepticism, and I think he quite rightly says that yes, it's incredible technology, but we're still early and we don't really know how this is going to shake out. And so it's quite a healthy antidote to the kind of like, AGI is coming, all those kind of things. So I like to keep my feet on the ground with him. He has a very, one of the things I always go back to is one of his tweets that he did, which is basically, anyone who says they've solved the accuracy problem in AI is lying to you, right? Because it is going to not be 100% accurate. That's just that's just that's just AI. That's
Yeah.
generative AI. But that doesn't mean it's not useful. Like it's still unbelievably useful. Like I use Claude all day pretty much, and it still will throw out a random person every now and then. That doesn't mean it's not useful. It just means to know you need to, what to look for. So yeah, that plus I have a bunch of other sort of think newsletters that land in my inbox each day. There's obviously Ethan Mollick, you'll know, and various others more on the legal side. But I try not to I try not to read too much about what's going on. I kind of just like I always try and stay focused on what we're doing and just building something that great to our customers. And I'm always amazed by actually how low the penetration is into lawyers. Like you speak to people like practicing attorneys, and they might be using Copilot, or maybe the firm's got a Harvey license and they're having a play around, but they haven't really used it. And so yes, there's so much noise and there's so much hype and there's so many VC dollars going into this market, but actually I think we're still very early.
So, Gregory, now it is time for the crystal ball question. And so, looking ahead the next 3 to 5 years, what's the single biggest change that you see coming for the role of, the oral advocate or the trial lawyer?
Yeah, so I think I kind of already touched on this, but I think it's going to be I think the human side of AI is going to be even more important because the sort of document review side is even less important. So the pressure on the human side, so mediations, arbitration, trial, depositions, is going to be even more important. The pressure will be even higher. So AI that can help you prepare for those is going to be really, really powerful. I think if you can review every single document in the world, let's say, and so there's not going to be any more smoking gun that hasn't already been found. It's going to be about how well you deliver that argument. It's going to be about how well you bring the story together. It's going to be about the way that you interface with your client and the way that you bring the context that's maybe not written down on any pieces of document on any document into the story, and how you bring it all together, and then you win the hearts and minds of the jury or the judge or whoever it is based on the evidence. So I think it's going to be, the kind of counterpoint is actually it's going to be even more important. And the oral advocacy is going to be even more important because the document review and the fact finding is going to be, largely automated, within a few years. So I think that's my crystal ball. It's going to be even more important to have great oral advocacy, and lawyers are going to want to train up for those kind of things, just as athletes preparing for the big race.
It's going to be more about the lawyering.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Greg Mostyn from Wexler, thank you very much for the conversation. I've enjoyed this, and thanks for us going off script with you a little bit.
No problem. Loved it.
And thanks to all of you, our listeners, for listening to the Geek in Review. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a colleague. We'd love to hear from you, so reach out to us on LinkedIn and our Substack page.
Awesome.
And Greg, where can the audience go to learn more about Wexler or about
So Wexler.ai, you can see it there in our office. Yeah. Wexler.ai, very easy
Did
to
you do that
remember.
on purpose?
Maybe I
Just
did.
kidding.
Maybe I did.
got
It's
a
like,
good
yes, I
marketing
did.
person?
Exactly. So yeah, head there. You can book a demo. You can book a chat with me. Otherwise, search me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat about anything, really. So yeah.
Terrific. Well, thank you again. And as always, the music you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thank you, Jerry, and bye, everybody.